Dub Nation, the whispers coming out of Northern California right now are absolutely electric. And what I'm about to break down for you could represent the most seismic shift in Warriors basketball. We made the moves that brought us back to championship contention. We're talking about a potential roster transformation that would fundamentally alter our identity, give us a completely different dimension offensively, and send shockwaves through the entire Western Conference. This isn't your typical trade rumor that gets floated every week and disappears just as quickly. This is something that makes strategic sense, something that addresses real needs, and something that could position us perfectly for another championship run while Steph is still operating at an elite level. Welcome to Warriors News Fan Report, your absolute best source for breaking Warriors news, exclusive insider analysis, the hottest trade rumors, and the kind of deep basketball breakdowns that separate casual fans from the diehards who truly understand what it takes to build a championship contender. I'm here to bring you the unfiltered truth about our beloved Warriors, the strategic insights that matter most, and the perspective you need to understand exactly what's happening with our franchise. What you're about to hear over the next several minutes will challenge everything you thought you knew about our roster construction plans, force you to reimagine what this team could look like moving forward, and potentially give you a glimpse into a future that's far more exciting than you ever imagined possible. Let me start by setting the stage for what's currently happening across the league, because understanding the broader context is absolutely essential to grasping why this particular opportunity might be materializing right now. There are franchises throughout the NBA that are currently at critical crossroads, teams that are evaluating whether their current trajectory is sustainable or if they need to make dramatic changes to their core, philosophy, and roster composition. Front offices are having brutally honest conversations about timelines, about whether their existing cores can realistically compete for championships, and about what moves they need to make to either accelerate their window or begin the painful but necessary process of rebuilding from the ground up. These inflection points are when the NBA landscape can shift dramatically, when star players who seem untouchable suddenly become available, and when opportunistic organizations with the right asset and the willingness to be aggressive can swoop in and capitalize on another franchise's misfortune or strategic pivot. Now, I want you to think about the Sacramento Kings for a moment, and I want you to remember where they were just a couple years ago versus where they find themselves today. Not that long ago, Sacramento was one of the most exciting stories in basketball. The Beam Team era had the entire league talking about the Kings as a legitimate rising power in the Western Conference. They had an explosive offensive system. They had young talent that was developing ahead of schedule. And they had a big man who was putting up consistent double-doubles while facilitating the offense in ways that made them incredibly difficult to defend. De'Aaron Fox was thriving as their primary ball handler. Mike Brown had figured out the perfect system to maximize everyone's talents. And there was genuine optimism that Sacramento had finally broken their playoff drought and was positioned to be a factor in the West for years to come. But here's the harsh reality about the NBA. Momentum can evaporate incredibly quickly, and what looks like a sustainable core one season can suddenly appear fundamentally flawed the next. Fast forward to today, and the Kings are facing serious questions about their direction. Coaching changes have disrupted the system that made them successful. Key personnel decisions have altered the roster chemistry. And suddenly, there are legitimate concerns about whether this core can actually take the next step and become true championship contenders, or if they're destined to be a perpetual play-in team that occasionally makes the playoffs but never seriously threatens for a title. That's a brutal reality to face, but it's the kind of honest assessment that every front office has to make at some point. At the center of Sacramento's current dilemma is one of the most productive big men in basketball, a player who has been an absolute workhorse throughout his career, someone who brings elite passing ability from the center position, and a veteran who understands how to impact winning in multiple ways. This player has been the fulcrum of Sacramento's offense for several years now, the guy who makes everyone around him better with his court vision and basketball IQ, and someone who consistently delivers double-double production night after night. But here's the critical question that Sacramento's front office is grappling with right now. If the system that maximized this player's talents no longer exists, if the coach who understood how to build an offense around him is gone, and if the team isn't winning at the level they need to Does it make sense to hold on to him, or should they pivot and move in a different direction? The production. Numbers tell part of the story. This big man is still getting his double-doubles, still showing up every night and putting in the work, but his overall output has declined noticeably. His scoring is down compared to his peak years. His assists, which were always one of his calling, are well below where they should be for a player of his caliber. And while some of that can be attributed to the changing circumstances around him, it also raises legitimate questions about fit, about whether he's in the right situation to maximize his remaining prime years, and about whether Sacramento will be better served moving him for assets that align with their next chapter rather than trying to force something that clearly isn't working anymore. Here's where things get absolutely fascinating for us as Warriors fans. And this is the moment where I need you to lock in completely, because what I'm about to reveal could change everything about how we view this season and beyond. There are rumors circulating, external speculation from credible basketball minds who understand how the trade market operates, that the Golden State Warriors are emerging as a potential landing spot for this elite facilitating big man. Now, before your mind starts racing in a million different directions, before you start asking about salary cap implications and what we'd have to give up, let me walk you through exactly why this makes tremendous sense from both a basketball fit perspective and a strategic, organizational standpoint. The Warriors' offensive system is predicated on constant motion, elite spacing, sophisticated screening actions, and players who can make quick decisions and keep the ball moving. What we've lacked in recent years, especially since certain key pieces from our championship cores have moved on, is a true point center who can operate from the high post or the elbow, survey the entire floor, and create easy baskets for cutters and shooters with his passing vision. We've had athletic rim runners who finish lobs. We've had stretch bigs who can knock down threes. We've had defensive anchors who protect the paint. But we haven't had that classic facilitating big man who can be a secondary playmaker, take pressure off our guards, and create offensive advantages through his passing ability and basketball IQ. Enter Domantas Sabonis, and suddenly everything I've been building towards starts crystallizing into perfect clarity. Sabonis is the player at the center of these trade rooms, the big man that Sacramento might be willing to move as part of their rebuild, and potentially the perfect missing piece for what the Warriors need right now. Think about what he brings to the table and how it would complement what we already do well. Elite passing from the center position that will give us another dimension in our offensive attack. Consistent rebounding that would immediately upgrade our ability to control the glass and limit second chance opportunities for opponents. The ability to score in the post, face up from mid-range, and make the right read based on how the defense reacts. And a basketball IQ that would mesh seamlessly with our motion-based system and the way Steve Kerr wants to play. I know what some of you are thinking right now, and I want to address the elephant in the room directly. Sabonis is not known for his defensive presence. He's never been a rim protector. He's not going to be confused with Draymond Green on that end of the floor. And there are legitimate concerns about whether adding him would compromise our defensive identity. But here's the counter-argument that I think is incredibly compelling. Our championship teams were never built on having 5 elite defenders on the floor at all times. They were built on having an offensive system that was so potent, so efficient, and so impossible to stop that we could outscore opponents even when our defense wasn't perfect. And in our current system, where we emphasize help defense, rotations, and team concepts rather than relying on individual defensive dominance, we could absolutely hide some of Sabonis' defensive limitations while maximizing everything he does exceptionally well on the offensive end. Imagine for a moment what our offense would look like with Sabonis operating from the high post while Steph Curry is running off screens on the perimeter. Imagine the pick and roll possibilities with a big man who can make every pass in the book and create advantages for shooters spacing the floor. Imagine the second chance opportunities we generate with his elite rebounding. Imagine the ball movement and the pace we could play with when you have a center who can grab a defensive rebound and immediately push it up the floor, or hit the trailing shooter in transition. This isn't just about adding a good player to our roster. This is about adding a player whose skill set perfectly complements what we already do well and addresses specific weaknesses that have held us back. Now let's talk about what a potential trade package might look like. And this is where the strategic chess match between front offices becomes absolutely fascinating. Sacramento is rebuilding, which means they're prioritizing young talent with upside, future draft assets, and players who can develop alongside their next core. The Warriors have exactly those types of pieces available. Moses Moody is a young wing with defensive versatility and an improving offensive game who would fit perfectly into Sacramento's timeline. Brandon Polyemski showed incredible flashes last season and has the kind of two-way potential that rebuilding teams covet. Quentin Post is a developmental big man with intriguing tools who could be part of their frontcourt future. These are the types of players who could headline a package for Sabonis. And while it would hurt to part with young talent that we've invested in developing, the opportunity to add a proven all-star caliber big man who's still in his prime might be too valuable to pass up. There's also been discussion about potentially revisiting conversations around Jonathan Kuminga, who was involved in trade talks during the offseason, but ultimately remained with the team. Kuminga has tremendous physical tools and flashes of brilliance, but he's also had consistency issues and hasn't quite put it all together yet. If including him in a package is what it takes to land Sabonis, the front office would have to seriously weigh the pros and cons. Are we better off betting on Kuminga's potential finally materializing? Or are we better off trading that potential for a player who's already proven he can produce at an elite level in the NBA? That's the kind of difficult decision that championship caliber organizations have to make. And there's no objectively right answer. Let me be crystal clear about something important. These rumors are currently fueled by external speculation and analysis from basketball insiders, not official statements from either the Warriors or the Kings. But that doesn't mean they're baseless or without merit. This is exactly how significant trades develop in the NBA. Reporters and analysts start connecting logical dots based on team needs and available assets. Front offices have exploratory conversations to gauge interest and discuss parameters. And suddenly, what seemed like wild speculation becomes reality when both sides recognize mutual benefit. The fact that Warriors Sabonis rumors are even circulating tells you that credible people around the league believe there's a logical fit here. And when you break down the basketball and the strategic considerations on both sides, it's genuinely hard to argue against that logic. From Sacramento's perspective, trading Sabonis would be a clear signal that they're fully committed to a comprehensive rebuild rather than trying to patch together a mediocre team that's stuck in basketball purgatory. Sabonis is a great player. There's absolutely no question about his talent and what he brings to the table. But he's no longer the right fit for where the Kings need to go. If they want to build around younger players with higher ceilings, if they want to emphasize defense and athleticism in ways that Sabonis doesn't provide, if they want to accumulate assets and draft capital for the future, then moving him makes complete sense, even though it will be painful for their fan base in the short term. From our perspective as Warriors fans, we're in a completely different phase of our organizational timeline. We're in win-now mode. We have Steph Curry still playing at an MVP level and defying every expectation about aging curves for point guard. We have a system that's proven to win championships when we have the right pieces. And we have a front office that's shown they're willing to be aggressive and make bold moves when the right opportunity presents itself. Adding Sabonis would be a clear statement to the league that we're going all in maximizing Steph's remaining championship window and giving ourselves a best possible chance to compete for another title before this era comes to an end. Let's talk specifically about how Sabonis would fit into our rotation and our style of play, because this is where the theoretical becomes practical. Steve Kerr would have so many options with Sabonis on the roster. You could run the offense through him at the elbow with Steph and our shooters spacing the floor, creating impossible defensive dilemmas. You could use him in pick-and-roll action that would force defenses to make impossible choices about whether to switch, hedge, or drop. You could deploy him as a screener in our motion offense, knowing that he can slip to the rim, pop for a mid-range shot, or make the extra pass to an open shooter. His rebounding would immediately improve our ability to control possessions and start fast breaks. And his passing would add another dimension to our offense that would make us even more unpredictable and difficult to game plan against. The timeline on this potential move is obviously unclear. Trade season is always fluid and unpredictable. Conversations happen behind closed doors, and things can accelerate quickly when both sides see mutual benefit or they can drag on for months before ultimately falling apart. But the fact that these rumors are surfacing now, in the middle of the season, when both teams are evaluating their trajectory and making decisions about their futures, suggests that there might be real substance here beyond typical speculation. Sacramento needs to make decisions about their direction. The Warriors need to make decisions about how to maximize Steph's window. And Sabonis needs a situation where his talents can be fully utilized and appreciated. When you have that kind of alignment of interests across multiple parties, trades can materialize faster than anyone expects. I want to be realistic about the challenges and potential downsides here too, because it's important to look at this from all angles. Salary matching would be complicated and would likely require moving multiple players. We'd have to part with young talent that we've invested time and resources into developing. There would inevitably be an adjustment period as Sabonis learns our system and we figure out optimal rotations and lineups. And there's always the risk that the fit doesn't work as well in practice as it looks on paper. But these are the kinds of challenges that every team faces when making significant roster upgrades. And they're challenges worth embracing if the end result is adding an all-star caliber player who makes us legitimate championship contenders again. The broader context here is that the Warriors front office has consistently shown they're not content to just run it back with the same roster year after year, hoping for different results. They've been active in trade discussion. They've shown willingness to make bold moves even when they're unpopular in the moment. And they understand that Steph's championship window won't be open forever, which means we need to be aggressive about capitalizing on every opportunity that presents itself. Adding Sabonis would be exactly that kind of aggressive. Win now move that signals to the league that Golden State is still a force to be reckoned with and isn't ready to fade quietly into rebuilding mode. So here's where we stand right now, Dubnate. Domantas Sabonis is potentially available as Sacramento contemplates a rebuild. The Warriors make sense as a destination based on roster needs and available assets. The fit is logical from both a basketball and strategic standpoint. And while nothing is official or confirmed, the fact that these conversations are happening in basketball circles tells you everything you need to know about how the league views both Sacramento's situation and our championship aspiration. This is absolutely a story worth monitoring closely over the coming weeks and months. Because if it comes to fruition, it could be the move that defines our season and potentially delivers us another champion. Now I want to hear from Warriors faithful. What's your take on the possibility of trading for Domantas Sabonis? Would you be willing to part with young players like Moses Moody, Brandon Podziemski, or even Jonathan Kuminga to make this happen? Do you believe Sabonis' offensive skills and playmaking would outweigh his defensive limitations in our system? How excited would you be to see Steph Curry and Sabonis running pick and roll together? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments right now because I genuinely want to know how Dub Nation feels about this potential franchise-altering move. If you're serious about staying on top of every Warriors development, every trade room, every strategic decision that impacts our championship pursuit, then you absolutely need to subscribe to Warriors News Fan Report right now and smash that notification bell. This is your home for daily Warriors content, insider analysis, and the kind of comprehensive breakdowns you won't find anywhere else. Share this video with every Warriors fan you know. Drop a like if you're excited about these possibilities, and keep coming back for more exclusive content. Strength in numbers, always. Let's go get Banner 5. Dubney.